morning, everyone, and welcome to today's reading of The Boy with an R in His Hand by James Reaney. Today we will be reading Chapter 7, called A Spoon for Dr. Strachan. If you'll remember, a little while ago, Alec found the spoon that had been stolen that caused Rebecca to have an R branded on her hand. On a dark November night, a Saturday, Alec and Rebecca, the servant girl, as the last of the household chores for their night, were sent out to bring in 2 pails of water. This they did, that is, they pumped the water and left it standing at the back door, going down into the kitchen, but instead of going in immediately, they rather guiltily left Uncle John's property altogether and were soon proceeding quite swiftly pardon me, down King Street in the direction of the English church, in that part of town where the lieutenant governor and most of the wealthier people lived. Rebecca wore a blue cloak with a hood and woolen gloves, the latter not just to cover the R on her right hand, but to keep both hands warm, for it had lately turned bitterly cold. Alec carried a huge nest, the crow's nest he had found in the woods. With the darkness, the nest looked, with its untidy twigs and reeds sticking out, a very mysterious object indeed, rather like a giant's wig or scalp. Down King Street they walked beneath all the signs, the Indian, the anvil, and the crowned boot, past the market and the stocks where bad people were sometimes put on public display, past the church, the courthouse, and the jail. There was going to be a ball that night at one of the hotels, and they could see servants lighting candles in the ballroom and others assisting a gentleman in decorating the dancing floor with huge coat of arms made out of chalk and watercolors. 2 great lions faced each other across a shield that had not been finished as yet. It was to be a masquerade ball, and Lady Catherine sat at her looking-glass in the government house, dressing herself as an Indian princess. She arranged wild bird feathers in her hair. Sir Peregrine, her uncle, had shot their owners that autumn on the peninsula as they, the ducks, landed for a rest on their journey south. The cook had saved the prettier feathers for Lady Catherine. Reflected in a corner of her glass, she could see a cloaked figure and a boy in black homespun with a bird's nest in his hand. The mad youth who invited that pig into tea and fetched poor Tully down from McAllister's roof. Out nesting in this weather. Oh, what a folly! Arrgh! Snarled Mr. Jarvis, dressed like a black huntsman, as he galloped suddenly out from a lane at them. But Mr. Jarvis's horse, nervous enough already with the black huntsman on its back, shied up about a mile up in the air when he saw, or perhaps smelt, the crow's nest. With a positive cannonade of hoofs, the frightened horse galloped off under the cursing Mr. Jarvis. Rebecca and Alec had no more trouble with him that night. From a tavern with not very much of a door came the sound of fiddle music. They could see Charlie French dancing a jig. He capered out to them very drunkenly and tried to pull them into the tavern, but neither Rebecca nor Alec cared to have a drop with him just then. As they turned down Front Street, it began to snow, one large white flake at a time dancing out of the thick, inky murk above their heads. Alec pushed open the gate in the wall around Dr. Strachan's house. Rebecca drew back. "I'm afraid, Master Alec." "Don't be afraid to claim your right, Rebecca. There can't be anything wrong with claiming your right." So here is a picture of Alec and Rebecca outside Dr. Strachan's house with the bird nest. Dr. Strachan's coach dogs began to bark at them, and a servant opening the door told them to go around to the back. But Alec took Rebecca's hand and pushed his way through. He had caught sight of Dr. Strachan in his library, and the thing to do was to march straight at him. The learned doctor raised his head and gave both of them and the nest such a stare that it almost pushed them right out of the room. Rebecca turned away, but Alec got his mouth open and stammered, "We've discovered the real thief of your silver, Dr. Strachan. Here's the silver pin, and you'll find the spoon at the bottom of the nest." Dr. Strachan did not say anything. The power of his stare weakened a bit. That was all. Alec had never seen anyone with such a sharp, straight nose, such a determined mouth, and such strong-looking black hair. Dr. Strachan began to whistle under his breath, a rusty, tuneless, straw-vibrating, taste-souring whistle that made Alec shiver. Here is a picture of Dr. Strachan. A very sour look on his face. At length, after an entire symphony of the winds, the churchman took the pin and examined it. "Yes, lad, this is Mistress Strachan's. What we want to know, sir, is, what about Rebecca's hand?" "Well, what about it?" "It shouldn't have been branded, sir. Her story was true, you see." Dr. Strachan stopped whistling. "Take £5, girl," he suddenly asked Rebecca. She would have said yes, but Alec cut in. £30, doctor. £30, and her young man can get out of debtor's jail, and they can get married. How'd you like to have that capital R on your hand for everyone to see and gawk at? That's a tongue twister. "Oh, sir," wept Rebecca, "if only my hand could be as it was before, that's all I—" "It cannot be, you fool," snapped Dr. Strachan. "You're one of Mackenzie's apprentices, aren't you? I told John McAllister that was a mistake. Well, here, take your £30 and get out." "Rebecca, how at the time were we to know that your daft story could be true?" "But, sir, I thought God would tell a minister that I was speaking the truth. Did you not pray to him, Reverend Strachan?" Strachan pressed a button that shut open a secret drawer in his rosewood desk. Out of the drawer he took money and very nearly threw it at them. "And take that nest with you." "Oh, no, sir," said Alec. "Your spoon's still in this nest. I left it in so you couldn't say we replaced and planted the things in there. But I can't feel with my finger. Here." Alec had put the nest on the floor. Dr. Strachan ran at the nest in fury and began to kick it all over the room. The spoon soon flew out. Alec and Rebecca also flew out the front door before he started in on them. The snow was flying thick and fast now, and carriages were rolling towards the ball at the hotel. Alec left Rebecca at the jail, where she was admitted to visit her sweetheart, a young farmer who since the harvest time had been imprisoned for debt by one of the tradesmen in town. But the jailer would not let Alec go in, and so he walked over to Frank's hotel, where through a window he watched the dancers. His favorite masquerader was Uncle John, who was attired as the Countess of Desmond, aged 100 years. Young Raymond Baby, who, like Mr. Jarvis, was fond of riding down Mr. Mackenzie's apprentice, was dressed as Puss in Boots. Alec guessed who the Indian princess was, and there was no difficulty at all in recognizing the Black Huntsman. What a pretty, magic scene the ball seemed, now that his friends were happier. Alec looked at the cedar-branched ceiling, the wreaths made of fir boughs, and the scores of tiny lights winking in their colored glass cups, winking and glittering from all sorts of unexpected places among the greenery. Later, as Alec turned away and started home for bed, he realized he must have been watching for quite a long time, because the shoes of the dancers had almost completely worn away what had earlier been the painted and chalked shield on the floor, the two great lion heads, and the shield they held between them. There is a picture of some dancers. I hope everyone enjoyed this chapter of The Boy with an R in His Hand. We will see you very soon for the next couple of chapters. Have a great day.